Um, have you ever been totally swept up by this, like, profound, intensely emotional movement only to look back later and wonder if it was actually kind of toxic?
Oh, absolutely. It happens to the best of us.
Right. Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today we're unpacking a stack of philosophical essays and behavioral research that explains exactly why we fall into that trap. And it all starts with a pretty fatal flaw in human psychology.
Yeah, that flaw is that we are basically meaning-seeking prediction engines.
Wait, meaning seeking what?
Prediction engines.
Right.
I mean, our brains are literally biologically hardwired to look for patterns and, intensity just to make sense of the world around us.
Okay, that makes sense. We want things to mean something.
Exactly. But because of that drive, we constantly confuse two very different concepts. Those concepts are significance and warrant.
Okay, let's unpack those terms a bit. Significance versus warrant. What is the actual difference there?
So significance is really just a measure of impact. It's like how weighty or intense or world-altering something feels.
Like a massive earthquake?
Right. Huge significance, but obviously not a good thing. Now, warrant, on the other hand, is its actual goodness.
Yeah.
Like, does it involve care, truthfulness, and non-harm?
Oh, okay. So we confuse them because when we experience something emotionally intense, our brains just assume it's good?
Exactly. Our neurochemistry spikes during those intense moments, and we mistake that profound, sweeping feeling for actual proof of goodness.
So it's kind of like assuming a really loud billion-dollar blockbuster movie is automatically a cinematic masterpiece just because the explosions shook your seat.
That is a perfect analogy, yes. The CGI, the loud baits, that's all just significance.
But if the script is terrible, it totally lacks warrant.
Right. And in the moral realm, confusing those two makes us incredibly vulnerable to bad actors. We end up accepting coercion or manipulation just because it's wrapped in a package that feels profound.
I want to push back on that a little bit, though. I mean, isn't a profound emotional response kind of an evolutionary signal that something is important?
Well, sure, it can be.
So why should I actively distrust my own gut feeling if I'm genuinely inspired by, say, a charismatic leader or a big movement?
Because charismatic movements are really, really good at disguising power and domination as wisdom.
Oh, wow. That's a scary thought.
It is. And to help see through that, our sources introduce this diagnostic tool called the dark twin test. It helps you strip away the emotion to look at the actual structure of a group.
Okay, the dark twin test. How does that work for you, listening at home?
So take a movement you really admire. Now, I want you to imagine a structural twin of it.
Okay, got it.
It has the exact same intense vocabulary, the same strict discipline, the same promise of changing the world, but you take out all the consent, the accountability, and the care for individuals.
Oof. So it's just the raw machine.
Exactly. If that dark twin still sounds appealing to you simply because of its transformative power, you aren't worshiping goodness. You're just worshiping significance.
Wow. So if it survives your test just because it's intense, you've completely fallen for the moral glow.
You really have.
But, I mean, most of us aren't exactly joining doomsday cults on a Tuesday, right? We're just trying to navigate our jobs and our social circles. So how do we avoid getting pulled into these toxic systems day to day?
And that's exactly where this framework is so useful. Because ethical failures, they rarely happen because of some cartoonish villain pulling levers.
Right.
They happen through quiet drift.
Yeah.
Decent people inside badly arranged systems making tiny compromises over and over until the whole system is completely divorced from reality.
To stop that drift, the sources argue we need to ditch the idea of finding absolute philosophical certainty and replace it with auditability.
Yes, auditability is key.
Meaning we need to be able to clearly see a group's assumptions and correct them. What does that actually look like in practice, though?
It looks like actively distrusting your environment when you notice specific tripwires. And two massive red flags are severe time pressure and an unusually smooth consensus.
Wait, break that down for me. Why is a smooth consensus dangerous? Doesn't that just mean everyone agrees?
You'd think so, but not usually. When a group is under pressure, the human brain's priority unconsciously shifts from finding the absolute truth to just maintaining group cohesion so we survive.
Oh, I see. So disagreement suddenly vanishes.
Exactly. People start prioritizing unity over accuracy, and that usually means the powerless are quietly being silenced to protect the group's identity.
So that smooth consensus is really just an illusion of safety. The takeaway here is that you don't need perfect certainty to participate in reality. You just need visible, correctable assumptions.
Right, and the courage to stop letting mere intensity counterfeit actual evidence.
Which brings us to a deeply unsettling final thought for you to mull over. It's this psychological concept called narrative capture.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Human memory isn't a flawless video recording, it's a reconstruction.
And because we are deeply social creatures, our need to belong to a tribe is frequently much stronger than our need for objective evidence.
Absolutely.
So ask yourself right now, what deeply held belief of yours is actually just the story you are desperately defending to maintain your social status? Are you protecting the truth, or are you just protecting your group?
Because the next time you get swept up in a movement that feels profound, you really need to know the difference.
Exactly. You need to know if you're chasing the good or just chasing the glow.
Which brings us to the profound paradox we're unpacking today. Why do facts so rarely change our minds?
It's a huge question.
It is. So today, we are taking our stack of sources for this deep dive, which range from, modern cognitive frameworks all the way back to ancient Greek philosophy.
Yeah, it's a great mix today.
And we're really exploring the social primate's brain. We're looking into how we humans prioritize narrative and social relationships, like long before we even touch logic.
Which is something I think everyone listening can probably relate to on some level.
For sure. Our goal here is to show you how our deepest cognitive biases are actually driven by our desperate need for identity validation and belonging.
And, to really grasp that, we have to kind of flip our standard self-image upside down.
Okay, how so?
Well, the sources point to this fundamental reality about human beings, which is that we are social before we are rational.
Social before rational.
Right, which means the idea of the lone objective truth seeker, it's largely a myth.
I think most people, and if you're listening right now, you probably feel this way too, we all like to think we're independent thinkers.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very comforting self-image.
Like, we imagine we just absorb this neutral stream of data from the world. We evaluate it without any prejudice, and we logically construct our worldview.
Yeah, but a person isolated from all social influence wouldn't just be lonely. I mean, their cognition would be entirely alien to what we consider human.
Wow. Really? Entirely alien?
Yeah, because we don't encounter a raw, unfiltered reality. We encounter an already interpreted world.
Right. Someone else has already put a label on it for us.
Exactly. Beliefs are overwhelmingly inherited. We get them from our families, our peer groups, our cultural history.
So social transmission is basically the dominant force in how we think.
It is, and it's driven by two massive evolutionary pressures that are actually constantly at war with each other: belonging and significance.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. So belonging is about safety in the herd, right? Like inclusion.
Correct. Not being left behind.
But significance, that's the desire to stand out, to feel unique.
Exactly. And that tension is the crucible for almost all social life. Belonging is about not getting left behind by the tribe, which, historically meant starvation or worse.
Right, literal death.
Exactly. But significance is about proving you have specialized value so the tribe won't even want to leave you behind.
Ah, I see. So you're valuable.
Right. But the need for belonging is so deeply wired into our neurological survival systems that people will literally endure intense humiliation, deprivation, and extreme conformity just to remain inside a group's boundary.
Okay, so if you're trying to get someone to change a core belief, say a political stance or a religious view, you aren't just asking them to update a spreadsheet in their head.
Not at all.
I used to think of it like pulling a block out of a Jenga tower, but it sounds like it's way worse than that.
It's much more foundational.
Yeah, it's more like trying to replace the concrete foundation of your house while you are actively hosting a dinner party inside.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. It's not just a structural problem, it's a social crisis. Your friendships, your family ties, your whole identity could literally collapse.
And that gets to the core of it. What's fascinating here is it explains why the dinner guests in your analogy are actively fighting you.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
When new evidence threatens an organizing narrative, disagreement is not processed by the brain as data. It's processed as a threat.
A literal threat.
Right. The sources highlight that people will almost always instinctively defend their narrative before they even consciously evaluate the incoming evidence.
But wait, if we're processing a disagreement over facts as a literal attack on our social survival, how is the brain masking this from us?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I don't walk around feeling like a deeply irrational creature who ignores reality just to keep my friends. We all feel very logical to ourselves, you know?
That's the trick. The masking mechanism is the brain functioning as a prediction engine.
A prediction engine.
Yeah, we tend to think of perception like a video camera just passively recording the environment.
Right, just taking it all in.
But neurobiology shows us the brain actively predicts reality to minimize surprise and conserve metabolic energy. You see what you expect to see.
Which brings us right back to the car.
Exactly.
The brain predicted a road because the GPS said so, so it literally tries its hardest to perceive a road in the middle of a lake.
It's a desperate attempt to avoid the energetic cost of being wrong.
Because being wrong takes effort to fix.
Precisely. And since anyone listening is likely familiar with the standard Daniel Kahneman model of dual process cognition, the fast emotional system 1 and the slow deliberate system 2.
Right, we don't need to rehash all the definitions there.
No, but the real issue is the relationship between the two. We like to think system 2 is the rational scientist in our heads, constantly fact-checking the emotional impulses of system 1.
Okay, so System 2 isn't an impartial judge evaluating the facts. What is it actually doing? Is it just like a rubber stamp for whatever our social primate brain wants to believe?
It operates way less like a judge and much more like a highly paid defense lawyer.
Defense lawyer. That's interesting.
Yeah. System 1 makes a snap judgment based on pattern matching, emotional comfort, and social survival.
Yep.
Then, System 2 gets to work building this incredibly elegant, logically sound presentation to prove to you and to the world why that snap judgment was objectively correct all along.
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't just build the case, it actively hides the opposing evidence from the jury, which in this case is your conscious awareness.
That reframes so much for me. I mean, I always wondered why you can show highly intelligent people definitive proof that a core belief they hold is false, and they just dig their heels in deep.
It's the backfire effect.
Right. If System 2 is a defense lawyer, then being highly intelligent doesn't make you more open to the truth. It just means you have a more sophisticated, expensive lawyer arguing for your biases.
Exactly. You're just better at rationalizing.
So a smarter lawyer is much better at finding loopholes in the opposing counsel's argument.
Yeah.
They don't change their mind. They just dismantle the threat more efficiently.
That is exactly what the research shows.
Hold on. I have to push back here.
Go for it.
If we are all just these blind prediction engines, prioritizing our social clubs over facts, and our intelligence is just a weapon to defend comforting lies, then how did we ever manage to, land rovers on Mars? Or cure diseases?
It's a fair question.
Clearly, we are capable of pursuing and discovering objective truth. We aren't entirely delusional.
We aren't, and that is a crucial distinction. Humans are genuinely truth-seeking creatures because truth, like understanding how the physical world actually works, has an immense survival value.
Right, you can't fake gravity.
Exactly. But truth is constantly competing with those other fundamental needs: safety, status, meaning, and cognitive load. Landing a rover on Mars is what we might call a tame problem.
Tame in the sense that the rules of gravity don't change based on how we feel about them.
Right. In engineering, everyone agrees on the starting axioms. Everyone agrees on what success looks like.
The math is the math.
But when we get to human affairs, identity, politics, morality, those are wicked problems.
Wicked problem.
Yeah. And the mind is highly resource limited. So, to conserve energy, we accept good enough explanations for the wicked problems.
So we take shortcuts.
Exactly. When new facts create psychological tension, it is vastly cheaper, metabolically speaking, to adjust our interpretation of reality than to rebuild our entire worldview and risk our social standing.
Oh. Okay, so if our brains are hardwired to build these elaborate defense cases for our biases, and we'll basically burn down the truth to save our identity,
Yeah.
has anyone ever tried to hack this system?
What do you mean?
Has anyone ever tried to build a framework that completely bypasses the storytelling engine?
They actually have. And to see the most ambitious attempt at that, the sources take us all the way back to the ancient Greeks.
Oh, really? So this isn't a new problem?
Not at all. This psychological struggle between a comforting narrative and cold facts isn't a byproduct of social media or, modern tribalism. The Greeks saw this exact subjectivity, and they literally went to war over it.
Which Greeks are we talking about here?
Specifically, the battle between Plato and a group known as the Sophists.
The Sophists.
Yeah.
Weren't they essentially the ancient equivalent of high-paid political consultants?
That is a very apt comparison. They professionalized rhetoric. They recognized early on that in human affairs, truth is incredibly fluid.
Right.
Protagoras, one of the most famous ones, famously declared, "Man is the measure of all things."
Meaning it's all subjective?
Exactly. The Sophists taught their wealthy students how to read a crowd, how to adapt an argument to an audience's emotional state, and crucially, how to argue both sides of an issue with equal force.
So they were basically the first people to systematize hacking system 1.
Yes.
They figured out that if you can make a story feel good to a group's identity, the facts don't really matter.
And Plato was entirely disgusted by this.
I bet.
He actually compared rhetoric to cookery. The rhetorician makes an argument taste appealing in the exact same way a pastry chef makes a cake taste good.
Okay, I like that analogy.
But neither the rhetorician nor the chef is necessarily providing what is nutritious or genuinely beneficial for the body or the soul.
Right, it's just empty calories.
Exactly. Plato wanted a mechanism for truth that was completely immune to the audience's mood, the speaker's charisma, or the prevailing social pressure.
He wanted an algorithm.
Yes.
So what was the ancient Greek algorithm for objective truth?
Deductive geometry.
Really? Geometry.
Yeah. The Greeks were mesmerized by mathematics because it offered something entirely unique. If you start with self-evident axioms and you follow strict logical steps, you arrive at a conclusion that is undeniable.
Okay, right.
Think of a triangle. The interior angles always add up to 180 degrees.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if you're a powerful Athenian general or a lowly merchant. It doesn't matter if you're angry or if it threatens your social standing. If you accept the starting premises, you have to accept the conclusion.
The sources refer to this as compulsory assent.
Yes.
It's brilliant because it bypasses the human element entirely.
Yeah.
It's the difference between trying to persuade someone to pay their taxes with this stirring emotional speech about civic duty versus just, handing them a calculator showing they owe $5,000.
That's a great way to look at it.
The calculator doesn't care about your identity. You literally cannot disagree with it without looking insane.
And Plato's grand ambition was to apply that exact mathematical rigidity to everything. He believed that if we could just discover the right starting axioms for reality, we could deduce objective, undeniable truths about justice, ethics, and politics with the exact same geometric certainty as a triangle.
But, you can't use geometry to solve a political debate or an ethical crisis.
Right.
Like, the calculator can tell me I owe the money, but it can't tell me if the tax system itself is morally just.
And you are hitting on the exact reason Plato's project ultimately failed in the real world, which his own student Aristotle actually realized.
Oh, Aristotle called him out.
Well, Aristotle spent a lot of time studying biology, the messy, physical, natural world. He recognized that unlike math, ethics and politics involve deeply contested starting points.
Right, because logic only works when everyone shares the criteria for success. Mars rovers work because everyone agrees on orbital mechanics. But when your fundamental criteria conflict, like when my definition of justice is built around individual liberty and your definition is built around collective equality, pure logic just breaks down.
It does. Debate in those scenarios rarely settles the issue. It mostly just clarifies exactly where the fundamental disagreement lies.
That makes sense.
So we inherit this permanent fracture in our cognition. We desperately crave absolute compulsory certainty about the messy reality of human life, but we can only ever have that kind of certainty about idealized abstractions like math.
Right.
In the real breathing world, the best we can achieve is probable knowledge.
Right. So we kind of find ourselves in a bit of a trap here. Ancient logic algorithms can't save us from our biased narratives because real life isn't a math problem.
Correct.
And science can measure the facts, but it can't tell us what those facts actually mean for how we should live. So how do you, the listener, actually navigate this? If you're looking at a new political movement or a corporate culture or even a wellness trend, how do you know if it's actually good or if your prediction engine is just high on the fumes of a good story?
The sources provide a highly practical framework for this. It's called participation under correction.
Participation under correction.
Okay. The foundational step here is distinguishing between claims that orient a life and claims that predict outcomes.
Oh, so we're talking about the difference between meaning and facts.
Precisely. A meaning claim is judged by its aptness. Like, does this belief help you live a coherent, resilient life?
Okay.
But the moment that meaning claim makes a measurable prediction about the physical world, it owes physical evidence.
Can you walk us through an example of how that line gets crossed? Because I think that happens a lot.
Oh, constantly. Think about someone navigating a severe illness.
Yeah.
If they say, this illness has taught me the ultimate value of my family in the present moment, that is a meaning that orients their life. it is highly apt.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Then if they say, my positive mindset and this specific dietary ritual are going to physically shrink the tumor, well, they've crossed over into prediction.
Right, because now they're making a medical claim.
Exactly. They now owe biological evidence. You cannot pay a physical debt with symbolic currency.
Wow. You cannot pay a physical debt with symbolic currency. That makes total sense for evaluating claims. But what about evaluating the communities or the movements we belong to?
That's the harder part.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier that belonging creates this physical rush. How do we separate the emotional high of feeling included from the actual goodness of the group?
That requires understanding the difference between significance and warrant.
Significance and warrant.
Yes. Significance is the visceral feeling of weight. If you've ever been in a crowded room where a charismatic speaker is casting a vision, and you feel that luminous, intense moral glow,
Oh, yeah.
that feeling that something deeply real and historic is happening right here, that is significance.
And if you're listening, you know exactly that feeling. Whether it's a startup kickoff, a political rally, or like a religious retreat, it is intoxicating.
Oh, completely.
Your system one is just flooding you with the chemical reward of belonging.
It's a powerful biological reward. But here's the catch. Significance has zero correlation with goodness.
Wait, zero?
Zero. Think about it. The invention of the atomic bomb was intensely significant. It carried immense weight. But that doesn't inherently grant it moral approval.
That's a heavy example.
But it's true. Moral approval is what we call warrant. Warrant asks cold behavioral questions. Is the system actually caring? Is it truthful? Does it protect the vulnerable? Or does it exploit them?
Okay, so how do we actually test this in our own lives? Because if I'm swept up in the significance of a group, my inner defense lawyer is going to actively hide the negative warrant from me.
Exactly. System 2 is protecting the vibe.
Right, so how do I catch my brain in the act?
The sources propose a brilliant diagnostic tool called the dark twin test.
The dark twin test. Sounds ominous.
It forces your system 2 to look at the structure of a community without the warm glow of the narrative. So take something you admire deeply. Let's use a modern example. A highly intense, mission-driven tech startup culture.
Okay, the classic we are changing the world startup. It gives you a vocabulary for your ambition. You get deep belonging with these brilliant peers. The late-night whiteboard sessions feel profound, and the founder is this magnetic visionary. High significance.
Perfect. Now, build its dark twin in your mind.
Okay.
Keep the exact same architecture, the same vocabulary, the same emotional intensity, but surgically remove the goodness.
How does that look?
Keep the intense belonging, but make that belonging entirely contingent on never questioning the founder's ethics. Keep the language of changing the world, but use it to manipulate 22-year-olds into sleeping under their desks and abandoning their families.
Oh, wow.
Keep the profound late-night rituals, but use them to create an exclusive in-group that mocks anyone who asks for a healthy boundary.
Okay, when you strip the paint off like that, it just looks like a cult.
Now look at that dark twin. Does it still have the machinery to generate significance? Yes. It's still intense. It's still emotionally transformative.
Right.
But the warrant is exposed as entirely negative. It's exploitative. So the test for the listener is this. If your admiration for the original startup culture survives contact with its dark twin,
Meaning you still defend it.
right. If you find yourself making excuses for the dark twin's manipulative behavior just because the vibe is so innovative and the mission statement is so grand, then you are only ever measuring significance.
You were just seduced by the storytelling engine? You weren't measuring actual warrant. That is incredibly confronting.
It's meant to be.
Because you can apply that to anything. Social media, echo chambers, political factions, even concepts like forgiveness.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if someone demands you forgive an abuser to keep the peace in the family, it utilizes the beautiful vocabulary of healing. But the warrant is totally stripped out. It's just being weaponized to protect the powerful.
Exactly. It forces you to bypass the emotional comfort of the narrative and audit what the system is objectively doing.
Which brings us full circle to our mission today. We started with the realization that human beings are basically storytelling prediction engines.
Yeah.
We prioritize our social survival, our need for belonging, and our identity narratives way above cold, hard facts. And our intelligence frequently just acts as a defense lawyer, rationalizing our biases instead of seeking objective truth.
And we explored how even the ancient Greeks, armed with brilliant deductive logic, couldn't cure this human condition. because real, messy human life lacks the clean certainty of a geometric proof.
Therefore, since we can't rely on raw logic to save us, and we absolutely cannot trust our own emotional pull toward a good story, we have to actively audit our beliefs. We have to separate the intoxicating glow of significance from the actual, warranted goodness of the things we believe and the groups we join.
That's a great summary. But, there is one final thought from the sources that complicates all of this, and it really lingers.
Oh boy. Lay it on me.
Well, we've spent this entire deep dive talking about how our brains manipulate reality in the present moment to protect our social standing. But this mechanism applies to the past, too. The sources note that human memory is not a replay mechanism, it is a reconstruction.
Wait, like a movie based on a true story rather than a documentary?
It's more extreme than that. It's a movie that is constantly being re-edited in real time.
You're kidding.
No, your brain is actively rewriting your memories right now, altering the details, shifting the blame, smoothing out the rough edges, all to ensure that those memories validate the coherent narrative of who you are today.
So our memories are just serving our current identity.
Exactly. Your memories exist to serve your current identity and your current social standing.
So if your memories are constantly being rewritten by your brain, just to protect the comforting story you want to tell about yourself today, who is the you that is actually doing the remembering?
It really suggests the self might just be the most successful story your prediction engine ever told.
That is a staggering mystery to chew on. It really makes you wonder the next time you're driving and the GPS tells you to turn into the lake, and for a split second you believe it, you have to ask yourself, are you seeing the road? Or are you just desperately remembering a time when you weren't lost? Something to mull over until the next deep dive.